Hello, I'm Anna Berardo from Shift Your Gaze, and I am here today with Linda Clement. Oh, she is a Thrive parenting coach and author of Lazy Parenting, Parenting a Simpler Way, The Way and Power of Mothering, Meditations on balance, mothering, and the Taoist way, and her ebook, The Manual Your Child Came With. She has a wacky sense of humor and genuine respect for humanity and children. And once she offers an 8-week parenting course called Raising Adults, Not Kids, because there are enough 4-year-olds walking around in 40-year-old bodies already. So welcome, Linda. I'm so glad you're here.
It's wonderful to speak to you again.
Yeah. So can you tell us, for our audience, I know we met on the whole body concept, but I know a lot of people who might be here today might not have been at that summit. So just so that they can get a chance to get to know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I can. I am a grandma because, I actually have a lot of white hair. You can see it. Usually my hair looks really dark on Zoom. I don't know what changed today. He's absolutely adorable, the perfect child. He's adorable. He doesn't live with me, so he never is a problem at all. He's absolutely perfect.
Being a grandparent is much easier than being a parent, I've heard. So
yeah, I love the bumper sticker. I like being a grandparent so much. I should have done that first.
Yeah.
I have 2 kids. Obviously, only one of them has a kid because there's only one kid. They're in their late 20s and early 30s now. I started out as a Little H League leader, which is the parenting group that supports parents who choose to breastfeed their children.
Yes.
And I actually just recently retired. I had been on the board of Little H League Canada for the last 2 terms and retired at the same time from leadership and the board.
Wow.
Just last March. Yeah. 30 years helping parents get a good
Wow.
start in their parenting journey. And in that work, I found that I was always continuously interested. I didn't sort of focus only on the young, the newborn, the pregnancy period, that really early first stage. I was interested in development all the way through. So I ended up building a group that just kept staying. This particular group of parents and their kids just kept coming every month. And a little while into that, a couple of years into that, it was really obvious that the kind of 6 to 11-year-olds were freaking out the new moms. So I split the group into a new moms group and an experienced moms group because they don't like being called the old moms. And not very long after that, one of them asked me to put on a parenting course because her husband was tired of arguing with me through her and he was tired of hearing Linda says all the time. That's when I wrote the Raising Adults, Not Kids. And I've given that course a couple of times. I'm moving it online for obvious reasons. I also have a course called Reconnect, 8 weeks being an influential parent, in order to build and maintain and regain the influential place in our children's minds and hearts.
Sounds amazing. And such a great journey because, like you said, you've really got to go kind of the gamut from birth to all the way to adulthood, right? And in there you saw some pockets of needs that needed to be addressed, right?
Yeah.
So we had such a great conversation and such a great connection at our last interview. So what happened was I wanted to do another interview with Linda because we started talking I think it was off camera about the fixing mentality, right? This fixing mentality. And I know as a parent, I mastered that course in fixing. I made big messes in fixing, and I'm coming all on the other side of it and seeing a whole different perspective on parenting. And I'm at that point in my life where I sometimes say, oh God, if I only knew that then, if I only knew that then, right? So that's wisdom with age. And so my whole philosophy too is all about quieting the limiting beliefs and everybody's fears and all this stuff. So I just thought this was such a great pairing, even though it kind of seems a little bit out to right field for me. I think a great pairing when we start talking about fixing energy, because I feel like that energy comes rooted in fear. It's really fear-based. And so I just would love for you to kind of share. I know we were talking about calling this episode Making a Mess, because that's what you said fixing energy does. And I thought, yep, I think you're absolutely correct. So
yeah, it's a very short focus energy. It's the idea that if I can stop this child from having this emotion now by giving it an ice cream cone or patting it on the head or taking away the toy or buying them the toy or whatever it is that
Yeah.
is going on around them, if I could just stop them from feeling this way, then I wouldn't be reminded of feeling this way. And I wouldn't be worried about my kid ending up being the same size mess I am. So if I can just stop them from feeling this way by fixing the situation, then everything will be great. And I'll have happy kids.
Right. Well, that's what we think.
No,
Right.
that's that short-term thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, in humans, and I'm afraid we're all that, so sorry, we can't distance ourselves from our emotions for a couple of fairly fundamental reasons. They are chemical and hormonal processes in our bodies. So there is no getting away from them.
Mm.
When we do that fixing energy at our kids, all we're doing is saying to them in one form or another, do anything you can now to stop from showing me this emotion. Because
Wow.
you can't stop the hormones and the chemicals with ice cream or punishments or toys or rewards or anything else. You can't stop what's happening in their body, and neither can they. But it says, don't do this in front of me. And all that does is teach a kid to repress their real feelings and repress their real experience and repress their knowledge of themselves. And it stops them, in the same way we were stopped, from learning how to handle their feelings.
Wow.
I love the way Bessel van der Kolk says it in The Body Keeps the Score. Yes, that's his book. He talks a lot about trauma and how adverse childhood events cause trauma in our bodies, which we end up growing up with and have to heal at some point. He says the goal is not to feel better, which is what fixing energy does. It's to get better at feeling. So that we can really be in our bodies, experience our feelings, understand where they come from and what they mean, and handle them in ways that aren't temper tantrums or tweet storms or
Yeah.
the other
'Cause-
kinds of
yeah, because
behavior we see in adults.
yeah, because I was going to say those tantrums just kind of progress to something different, right? They become maybe a little socially more acceptable, but they're still happening, right? As we get age and we get older and stuff. So I have like two questions off of that. One is for people who have children who are of that age right now, right? What are some of the strategies they can use when their child is having that tantrum and it is a reflection of maybe something that they had to deal with, and the parent is like flipped out or embarrassed or, just, it's just
Reminded of those feelings.
Yeah.
They come back up in themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't teach what you can't do. In spite of that old, people who do it, and people who can't do it, teach it. You can't teach what you can't do.
Okay.
Because this is all from an emotional connection level.
Yeah.
And if you can't connect on an emotional level, you cannot teach people to connect on an emotional level.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a thing. So you need to expose your own emotions in that moment, at least to yourself.
Okay.
If you are in the quick, give it a toy or a puppy or whatever energy, all you're doing is trying to divorce yourself again from your feelings that this has brought up in you. So what you need to do instead is the very first chapter of my book, which is too far away to grab now. In Lazy Parenting, the first chapter is called Do Nothing. And it's a blank page.
Yeah.
Because you need to do nothing when you are flooded with emotions. Acting now is not a good idea.
Yeah.
And saying things now is not a good idea. So wait for that immediate rush to pass, because there's a sense of hurriedness that comes underneath that fixing as well. We need to do it right now. We need to do it right now. There's very few things that you need to do right now. Almost nothing is actually an emergency. And when it really is, your body will react faster than you can think anyways.
Yeah. True.
Like you don't think to yourself, oh, I've got to do something really fast. There's a car coming towards me. You jump out of the way and then try to figure out why.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
So that sense of urgency is an urgency to dampen down our own feelings.
Yeah. Mm.
And if we can set a timer and wait 90 seconds, which seems like 100 million years when a kid is having a temper tantrum in a store, if you can wait 90 seconds, your feelings will pass quite
Wow.
naturally. You don't have to do anything about them. You just say, wow, I'm having a really big thing going on in my body right now. Tick, 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 tick. It'll
Yeah.
feel like a million years. It really will. But if all you do is nothing at all for 90 seconds, you will no longer be experiencing that emotion. And
That,
then
yeah.
you can approach your child with calm energy
Mm.
and change the environment or fix the problem or wait for the storm to pass.
Yeah, that's amazing because it's almost the exact opposite of what we all do, right? We jump in and want to fix it and make it right and correct it and make it go away right away. And within 90 seconds, right? And instead you're saying just kind of just wait. It's almost like take a deep breath, take a few deep breaths, exhale, close your eyes, let it happen. Everybody's safe. As long as everybody's safe, we're good, right? And then let it pass. And then once it passes those 90 seconds, you're in a better state of mind to actually deal with it. And you haven't dismissed it either, because that's another, right? Sometimes we just push it aside as well. So yeah. So I more experienced this. I did experience it obviously when my children were younger, but I was really made aware of it when my children became teenagers. Right. So, and how they would come to me often with, this stuff and they wanted to dump it on me and they dump it and then I'd start trying to fix it and then they'd get mad at me and start like kind of yelling at me like it was my fault and I didn't understand. And what I've come to learn is kind of there's like when they come to me, I kind of like look like, okay, are you looking for advice or do you need to vent? Those are like my two kind of in my head. I kind of say like I have to feel them out. So I feel like, and the stakes are bigger when they're teens, right? So you want to talk a little bit more about how to maybe deal with that level or that preteen, because the early childhood's it's not easier. You think, when you're on the other side of it, you're like, oh, that was easy because you actually could scoop them up if you had to, right? But yeah.
Yeah. One of the things about that it reminded me of immediately was I don't remember, somebody very Zen kind of parent whose answer to almost everything in the teenage years is let go or be dragged. Yeah. You can either let go of the idea that you're in control of this person and just be supportive and understanding and listen to them so that they can go through their process of whatever is scary, horrible story they're having. Or you can just be dragged along with them. Because as you say, you can't scoop them up and make the problem go away. You can't fix the environment anymore. You can't fix them because they don't like that. It's kind of condescending, actually, to suggest to another human being that you have the easy solution and all they had to do was tell you the first 3 words of it and you've got the answer. That kind of says, I think you're really dumb. And wow, it's a good thing you came to me because I know the answer right away. And it's really obvious. How dumb are you? Like when you really hear it from that side, you can really see it differently. And then that fixing energy kind of abates a little bit because it's kind of offensive.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way, actually. That's really interesting. Wow. So I was also thinking that this fixing energy that makes a mess is also can be part of like enabling energy.
Yeah. There's a great story that I read a long time ago about a guy who his son was paralyzed in an accident. And the dad felt that it was his fault. And so he catered to this young adult who was paralyzed in a way that was really inappropriate. Like he would get up and change the TV channel with the remote instead of giving the kid the remote. Or he'd feed him when the kid was only paralyzed from the waist down. He didn't need anybody feeding him. And the kid initially protested and resisted this, but the dad felt like he really needed to take care of him. So he was just going to do this anyways. And it wasn't until the doctor saw what was happening and took him out into the hall and said, you have to stop doing this. In fact, you need to go home because your son is learning from you that you think he's not capable of this, and he'll believe you.
Mm.
You're training him to think he can't do this.
Yeah,
And while you're putting a yoke around your own neck, you're also crippling him in a way that he isn't crippled.
yeah,
Only his body is damaged. He can learn to live with that and be a very successful person with it, but you are crippling him at a self-esteem level.
wow, wow, wow. Yeah, so talk
Yeah,
about a mess.
yeah,
That's a big mess.
that's a big
Right?
mess. And
Yeah,
that's what that enabling, I'll let me do it for you. I'll make sure you're never sad. I'll make sure you're never angry. I'll make sure, you know, all that going all around the houses to keep this mood constant all the time.
yeah,
Beyond not being realistic, it's crippling to people because then they're 21 and have no idea how to deal with frustration or disappointment.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny. Yeah, somebody I actually work with, had something going on, and he said to us, it's kind of like they need to have natural consequences to overcome what it is that they're dealing with. Because if we keep stuff, interfering and it's not going to happen, and then he's not going to learn the natural consequences. So, he's talking about like, well, if he doesn't do his homework one night,
He might pass the exam anyways, and then you'll learn something.
right?
Yeah. Anything that comes from that sense that I know better than you is really not helpful. At the
Oh,
very least, it's not
yeah,
helpful. And we talk about sort of the lawnmower parents who take it upon themselves to mow down every possible obstacle for their child. The fact is, children believe hilarious things, which is, the way they are. That's the way kids are. When they're 2, they think that they can do anything because they have no idea what their limits are. So
yeah,
they want to do things like move the house out of the way or fly, or
right, right,
they
right.
can't work out why they can't levitate, or how come when they think really hard about it, the fairies don't show up. They really want to control the universe. And because they don't understand concrete reality yet,
Mm,
they think they can. And that's one of the real big sources of frustration for toddlers, is that they think up things and then physically can't actually do them. And when we give them an ice cream cone because they can't move the house, all they're learning is to treat their feelings with food, or treat their feelings with toys, or treat their feelings with demands,
yeah,
instead of figuring out that sometimes your plans aren't going to work, and disappointment's an ordinary part of life, and
yeah,
frustration at your inability to control everything in your universe is a regular frustration in life. And it doesn't serve a 22-year-old to have not figured out that part of the world when they were 2. And
yeah,
it really is all they're trying to do, is figure out the world.
right.
When parents interfere too much with that, the reality is if you fall down off that, you may get hurt.
Yeah,
There's 2 ways parents interfere with it. One of them is trying to fix it and stop them, pad everything, so that they don't get hurt. And the other one is to hurt them if they didn't anyways.
oh,
That's
interesting.
what logical consequences and every other form of punishment really are. Natural consequences didn't work hard enough or fast enough for you to learn what I think you needed to learn in that instant. So I'm going to apply some of them.
Mm,
I'm going to make consequences happen so that you learn that it hurts, instead of your kid finding out that maybe it doesn't hurt.
yeah, right, depending on, yeah, interesting, very, that's very interesting, concept, right? So to kind of switch it around. So
Well,
this,
and it's still fixing, right? The
yeah,
universe didn't supply the right thing, so I'm going to fix it for you.
yeah, I'm going to show you.
Yeah. Well, and it's from either end, right? Like it's the same, it's on the same teeter-totter.
Yeah,
Whether you're padding it or putting knives in it, it's the same. I'm going to fix this so that the world is the way I think you should see it.
yeah. And you bring up a really good point too, because like the 22-year-old who hasn't learned that, and that's been kind of like something I know I'm being very cognizant of, is, especially with the way kids are growing up with social media and all this stuff right now, right? And I know, like, I can be a mama bear, like somebody, insults my kid or does wrong by my kid, I'm coming out with my claws, right? And lately I've been really stepping back, really saying like, they're going to figure it out. They, you know, it's their, they, you know, somebody was mean to them and they have to learn how to deal with it. I can't go in and rescue them or fix it for them, because then I'm denying them the opportunity to learn how to deal with those problems. And then, you know, as adults, it's, well, you know, I didn't like the way my boss looked at me, right? I don't like, I didn't get, so-and-so got a raise and I didn't get a raise, right? Those kinds of things. So
I didn't get invited to the class party. Yeah.
yes, you didn't get
Yeah.
invited to the class party,
Yeah.
and being able to, it's hard, but it is a sense of part of that not fixing it, because like I always think, like, when we fix it when it's a little problem, but when we try to fix it when they're big, it's a bigger problem. And it gets a little bit more messy and more complicated, hence making a mess, right?
Well, and I had a client a long time ago. She actually came to my parenting course. I don't remember her name or even the ages of her children, but she was talking about how she was trying to control her 3-year-old. Essentially, she was trying to make her 3-year-old do what she wanted and think the way she thought she should, and all those other, you know, I know better than you kind of energies. And I said, you need to let go of this kid, because the kid was not going to stop arguing. And I already knew that. I was the kid who was not going to stop arguing. So
You saw
I
that
know
right away.
those kids are real. They're out there. And the thing that parents don't understand in that scenario is kids aren't arguing to get their own way. They're arguing to be themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said, you need to let go. You need to let go. And she said, do you have any idea how hard it is to let go of a 3-year-old? And I said, I not only know that because I've done it, but I also know how hard it is to bury a 13-year-old. And when you keep imposing your will on this person, she will rebel. And eventually she'll mount a revolution, because she will not give in.
Yeah.
If she gives in to you, that's suicide.
Right.
And if you push her hard enough, it's homicide.
Mm.
She will end up killing herself to prove you are not her.
Right. Yeah.
It's not worth it.
No.
Let go. Stop
Well,
trying to control who
we
they
get
are.
so, like, caught on wanting to be right and being that, like, there's so much that goes into this fixing energy. And that's why it was such a great topic when we started talking about it, because you don't even, it's subtle. You don't even realize it's almost like socially acceptable, and there's a lot of judgment around it, right? Your kid's having a tantrum at 3 in the store and people are walking by and they're giving you the evil eye, and why don't you control your child? And, you know, so there's those emotions, right? So it's kind of like built into society to kind of keep everybody in line, right? To think, well, we can keep people in line. We can, you know, we can, as parents, we're going to do this. And I think, that you're right. Like, it just makes a big mess. We're not helping anybody, you know, moving forward.
It's kind of a genetic heritage thing. When we lived mostly in villages that were probably 180 people, keeping everybody in the village on your side was a survival trait, because the people who don't get to stay on, like, if you end up opposed to the village, they will see to you and it will be over. They'll throw you out. They will murder you. They will not put up with your dissent energy in their groups. So we have a big fitting in need that has outlived its usefulness now that we live in cities of 8 million people, where if you're walking down the street and worried about what everybody's thinking about you because of that heritage that we have, you're worried about people who you are probably never going to see again. They have no influence over us anymore, but we still have that emotional connection to being seen in a particular way.
Yeah.
And we pass it on to our kids because we believe it's important, without really looking at what it is that we're trying to accomplish with it or what it was ever for.
Yeah.
So that whole sense of, you know, the people making faces at you in the mall, you are not a mind reader, and they may actually be remembering when they got beaten by their parents in that situation, as opposed to thinking anything about your parenting.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true. You really don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah.
You just,
All you're seeing is their faces, and you're supplying the story.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
assuming it's about you, but it may not, nothing to do with you. And that's
Yeah.
the hard, that's really the hard part. Yeah. Yeah. So this whole thing about making a mess and doing, do you have any like really good tips that I think maybe our audience here might really benefit from? I love the 90 seconds. That was awesome. That probably we could use across the board, going from birth all the way up to adulthood and beyond, right? I mean, I think I have a little bit of the opposite side going. My parents are aging a bit. And so I'm finding myself the same thing. I want to go and help and fix, and I realize they don't want me to. So
Mhm.
I'm really stepping back and letting, giving them their autonomy and helping when they ask me to help, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it doesn't go away. It's a very
No.
interesting um, dynamic in relationships.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you have
Yeah.
any.
So beyond not doing anything, like just do nothing, that would be good. We need to get much better at feeling our own feelings. And I
Mm,
think we are all very resistant to that because initially it's extremely overwhelming. A woman I know was at work one day when she was in her middle ages, so she was having all the hormone storms and her kids were having struggles, and it was just a bad year.
right.
And she was overworked at work and very engaged in the work, so she really cared, but she just didn't have time to do everything. And her priorities were never very well clarified, like whose work do you do first if 5 people are giving you work? So one day, a guy gave her a piece of paper and she burst into tears and didn't stop crying for 3 days. They were nice. They let her go home and said, come back when you're feeling better. But it was that a whole lifetime of not crying, because if I could start crying, I'm not going to stop.
Right.
And for a little while in those 3 days, she was pretty sure she was never going to stop crying.
Wow.
But the fact is, we need to get better at feeling what we feel. And it's helpful to get somebody who's good at listening to facilitate that, so that we don't get lost in our justifications of why I was right and they were wrong, or the storylines behind it, and actually just get right into the actual physical feelings that we're avoiding, so that we get better at being around other people's feelings without doing that fix it, minimize it, dismiss it thing that doesn't work,
Right.
that makes such a mess, that makes a mess of our personal relationships, and it makes a mess of our children's futures.
Yeah. I completely hear you there. And I think there is this need for, I feel that it's coming, that people are talking more about feeling your feelings. I don't know if we're actually really doing it yet, but we're talking about it. And it is becoming a little bit more socially acceptable but I feel it's also a whole vocabulary. Like people really don't even have the vocabulary to express how they feel. And I know too, like you said earlier, like when a toddler is having a tantrum and their parents hand them an ice cream cone, the ice cream cone is their feelings, right? So the ice cream cone, like, so the association as you age is like, well, when I feel like this, I get an ice cream cone, right? And then that takes you all the way through, again, your entire life, unless you really sit down and deal with the feeling about it instead of trying to shove it down with an ice cream cone,
Yeah.
right? Or make it
Yeah,
go.
instead of eating your feelings. Yeah.
Right,
Well,
eating your feelings, or exercising your feelings, or whatever, whatever it is, vegging
gaming,
out, numbing your feelings, watching
arguing
television
with
on
strangers
Netflix.
on the internet, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Whatever you do to, drinking, shopping, sex,
right,
gambling, whatever you do to avoid your feelings, really.
yeah, yeah.
I like, rather than focusing on the vocabulary, because a lot of people get hung up on the idea that I need to pick the right name for it.
Oh,
That's much less important than being in your body and feeling your shoulders are up by your ears. It's like, oh, apparently my shoulders are tense. Often people's fists will be balled without them having any awareness of it at all. Those are where we've stored our emotions. That's where we put the feelings that were inside our bodies. So if we go back into our bodies and say, where am I tense? Where am I hot? Where do I feel weak or numb? That's getting back in touch with our physical animal body. And that's where all the feelings are anyways. So we don't need to go back through, 45 years or 75 years of our personal history with a therapist to get analysis to find out what it was that went wrong. We can be in our bodies right now and just experience what we are really feeling.
I love that. I love that. So it's just the same 90 seconds, right?
Mhm.
To feel into your body and be like, okay, where do I feel that in my body? And once I feel that, just feeling, right? Just acknowledging it, I'm sure
Just
shifts,
feeling it,
just,
not telling stories about it, not, and that means, and not, and so this, it's just, my stomach just clenched. My jaw is really tight. Feels like there's something wrapped around my head like a band and it's sinking inwards.
mm,
Just, just stay with the feelings, the actual physical sensations. And
yeah,
what you'll find is they move around.
yeah, yeah,
Be like, oh, my stomach just clenched and it's really sore and now it's hot and now it's, hang on, now it's my lower back. My back is spiny and pokey and no, now my legs are numb. Now my thighs feel really tight. Like you'll find it moves through your body and
wow,
just the focus of attention on it makes it move. And as soon as it's
wow.
moving, everything is better.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Not that I can't wait to have a real big feeling that I get to do that, but I'm gonna be like, stop someplace. Wait, I'm having a feeling.
Well,
But
and it's actually a good idea to practice the technique, like to just scan your body when you're not having big feelings, because that gets you better at just noticing it.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that because I know just for myself too, like a lot of times when I'm driving, I'll have waves of something come over me and I don't think I'm even thinking of that thing that
Mhm.
is what was bothering me, but something must be, right? And you'll have this emotion and you're like, wow, wonder what was that? Like, why was my stomach like, why did I get a nervous belly? Or why are my shoulders up like this? Or right. And why am I clenching the steering wheel? you know? So
Yeah,
yeah, interesting. So
yeah.
just kind of be aware of them and without judgment. I think that's the hard part, right? Without
And
judgment.
without trying to fix them.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're like, oh, and my shoulders are really tense. Yeah, they're really tense. Instead of going push them back down, because if you just push them back down in a minute, they'll be back up there.
Yeah,
If you
that's true.
just feel it and go, oh, that's like my upper back muscles are super tight and my head's all pushed backwards. That's really weird. And it's interesting. And now I realize I have a headache. Like it moves by itself instead of
Yeah,
you forcing it, like forcing your hands to
yeah,
unclench. It doesn't fix anything.
yeah. I love that. I love that. So you've so far two really good pieces of advice, right? The 90 seconds and just letting, if it's with another person, letting that person just do their thing for 90 seconds, you breathing and coming into your own. And then even at that point would probably be a great time to body scan yourself, right? Right. If it is your child, if it is a toddler, if it is a teenager, if it is a parent, whatever it is at that moment, it's good to body scan yourself because it's right in that moment where the fear is coming. I just find it so interesting how fear works in us.
Yeah.
It's like it really, and you wouldn't think that this fixing energy was rooted in this fear of really feeling our feelings, right? It's a fear of feeling our feelings. And just if we could just learn how to do that, right, we could really minimize a lot. So, yeah.
The other cool thing about that is when you do it, the 90 seconds of the body scan in front of another person, if you're doing it in front of an adult, you probably need to say, give me a minute. I just need to just give me a minute. Because people get impatient for a reaction sometimes and you just go all blank. But if you're doing it in front of another person, one of the things that you'll find is after you've done your body scan, you start scanning theirs. And you can see tension in their shoulders, their little wobbly chin, their eyes that look like a very sad puppy. Like you can
Ooh.
see their physical reaction more clearly if you have already felt your own.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
And so
then
the
you can say to them, I'm guessing that you're feeling angry, frightened, upset, something, who knows, because I can see your shoulders are tense or because I can see your mouth is frowning.
whoa.
And that just changes the conversation trajectory completely.
Wow, that's another great piece of advice. Wow. Well, because when you're in those heated moments, right? And you're both heated, right? Because both of you are getting triggered, your feelings and
Yeah.
your emotions are being triggered. Um, if it's not just about you, right? Because now you not only are you shifting, you're going to shift, you're shifting yourself, right? But then not the ability to fix the other person, but the ability to shift that energy in the conversation is really what happens, right? And then
Yeah.
it's not as heated and the triggers are diminished.
Well,
Yeah.
and to, sort of, because I like puns like this, what you're effectively doing is shifting your gaze.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was actually expecting you to say it. I thought, that's a great opening right there.
Yeah.
Because what you're looking at, you not only shift how, like, the perspective you're seeing it from, but your eyes relax.
Yeah.
And then you see it from a centered, calm place.
Yeah. Which
And
is
as soon as
really,
you become centered and calm, other people stop reacting to you.
yeah, which is really one of my main messages, right, is to shift your perspective, right, to see the world from a different perspective, because we all go in with these blinders on. It's like the horses in the horse race and you're going like this, and
Yeah.
right, and we need to open up and see beyond, right, ourselves and
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, that's fabulous. Thank you for the pun. I enjoyed that. That was great. That was really, really good. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us, because this has been fabulous for me?
I think just one more technique, because when we get really frightened, we get really frightened. And it's important to know how to talk your body down off of fear, because we'll be walking through a entirely peaceful and placid, beautiful garden, having a panic attack about our pension savings or something. We are capable of terrifying our body with our stories.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's a great technique that's used for calming kids down, and it works really well for bodies. It's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Because when you're panicking, your body's reacting like there's something dangerous and you need to talk your body out of it again. And the way to talk your body out of it is not to say, oh, I'm just being silly and I need to let that fear go, because it doesn't work. What works is, again, getting back in your body. So it's 5 things you can see, because if you're frightened by something, you should probably look around and see if there was a reason for that.
Yeah.
And then 4 things you can hear, because what you might have heard was a cougar or a bear. So,
Yeah, or
it'd be a good idea to
scary,
pay
a loud
attention.
noise,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
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 Somebody running towards you, something, you might have heard, the building next to you starting to creak and groan in a terrifying way. There might be a reason that you're afraid, is the purpose of this exercise. So look around, name out loud 5 things you can see. Listen for 4 things you can hear. Describe 3 things you can feel with your body, like touching, because somebody might have just touched you or something. You might have just stood on something that's wobbly, or there might be a reason for your fear. So figure it out. Is there something that's touching your body?
Yeah.
Then you find 2 things you can smell, because you might have smelled smoke and not realized it, or something. So smell things. And then the last thing is something you can taste. Almost always what you can taste is bitterness, because what you are feeling is stress hormones. What you're tasting is cortisol. But you can usually taste something in your mouth when you realize, I can usually taste something if I think about it.
Yeah.
And then by the time you get to taste, you've looked around, you've listened, you've smelled the air, you've felt your body, and there is nothing frightening here, and you're not frightened anymore.
That is genius. I love that. And it's so, and you've actually taken your attention off of whatever it is that you were having a panic attack about, unless it was something that you really needed to be scared of, like a burning building that you needed to get out of, or some, right? I mean, those are the pieces. And that's beautiful, because I think that it allows you, again, to come back into your 5 senses, which is your body, in a different way, right? And it gives you structure. It's very like tangible, like it's a script. It's like a recipe, do this, 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 and this. And I could see that in those fight and flight moments, right? When people like really, you get, I mean, they want to just run because they don't even know why, right? They're just having a panic attack, that they could go do this, and that would really calm that down. And
well, and it stops them from doing the thing that makes a mess. Okay, so you run. Maybe you run towards the danger that you perceived.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, sort of back to the beginning, when you do anything that you can think of first, it's probably the wrong thing to do.
Interesting.
Like, that's why doing nothing is more important. If you were genuinely in physical danger right now, your body would have moved, and you'd be figuring it out later. If you're feeling afraid, whatever you think of first is possibly going to put you into the danger that you've sensed.
Yes.
So wait first. Figure out what it is that you've just experienced that has made you afraid. And it might just be, you were scaring yourself with your nightmare thoughts, but there might be something real out there And when you react without thinking, without pausing to see what it is you're reacting to, you could be running towards the gunshot that was what made you freak out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And like you said, though, if it really were a gunshot, you probably would have already reacted, right? You know, if it really was. So it's like one of those things like 99.9% of the time, right? It's just going to be something that your mind has conjured up to, right? And that you've got like a subconscious thought that just keeps running the script and now you're panicking about it, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I love.
we are masters of narratives, and we are amazingly good at terrifying ourselves with our own
Yes,
nightmares.
I know. We write our best horror stories. Isn't it amazing? And it always
Yeah.
goes right to bad. Like, you know, something,
Yeah.
somebody doesn't pick up the phone and you're automatically think, oh my gosh, something happened to them, right? And they just didn't answer the phone. That was it. That was all that happened, you know?
Yeah.
But we tell
Well,
our,
and the great example of the, the driver cut you off in traffic, he's trying to kill you. Actually, he probably didn't see you.
yeah. Yeah. He didn't see you or he's in a rush to get someplace and it has nothing to do with you. Again, nothing to do with you. We like to make things up that everything's about us, when it really and truly we're all just in our own worlds moving around and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is
I
great.
always like to joke that people, the scientists are still wondering where the center of the universe is, but
Yeah. All in the center. We're it. We're it. Each one of us are a center of our own universe. So that's all that matters. Yeah, that is great. So I love these 3 tips. I'm going to recap really quick. You may have to help me with. So the first one was the 90 seconds, just taking a 90-second pause, deep breath, maybe. And if you want to, you can incorporate the second one in there, which is the body scan, and just going through and feeling your emotions within your body where they are, where you're holding those fears or those emotions at that moment. And then the third one, which you could actually do at this all within that 90 seconds if you really wanted to, is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So just repeat the 5
5
things,
things you can see,
5
4
things.
things you can hear, 3 things that are physically touching you, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste.
Okay. And by the time you get to there, everything's a little calmer and you're not worried about running or having a tantrum or anything. And at
Or
that
you've
point,
identified the fear, the source of it.
yeah,
Then
the
figured
source.
out what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and if we get back to the fixing energy, that'll take us back to, right, where we kind of are saying like a lot of those pieces all, right, when there's that situation, those triggers where we feel like we want to be right and we want to fix, our fears are all triggered. And these are just ways of dealing with the fears. So that's, yeah. And when we don't, we just make a big, big mess.
Because we give our fear to other people.
Yeah.
L.R. Noss, I think she wrote Jesus the Gentle Parent or something. I don't remember the title of her first book. She actually said that our job is not to join in the chaos of our children, but to bring our calm to their chaos.
Yeah.
And obviously we can't do that with that fixing energy because that's our own chaos.
Yeah.
Then we're passing the chaos on to them and they can't handle it either.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it challenging, right? So it's challenging for parents because they don't feel, I mean, I know I didn't feel equipped to deal with all of those fixing pieces. And then, as we're adults, that's just the way we've learned to deal with everything. So it becomes, I used to call she visits very often, fixing energy. And I used to call her Justine because she's like justifies everything. Like she had to, she was like the person, everybody was going to do it this way because this is the right way, and really my own journey has showed me that did not work very well. In fact, we made a lot of messes together. So
you can probably pick them up, made a slideshow.
Yeah, I could make a beautiful slideshow of all the messes I've made. But I think that, coming into this, and this is why it's so important for me, I feel, to share your message and to share this whole thing about fixing energy. And I just love it. So I would love to invite our audience. Well, I definitely will include the 2 books that you had put down, and then also your book. And I know I would like to invite them that if they have any questions or anything to reach out to you, where can they reach you? What's the best email, website they can reach you at?
The easiest one to write down in a hurry is raisingparents.net.
Raising
That's the
Parents.
website, and all the links are on there. Links to my email, links to Facebook, Instagram, all that is all there.
Yeah.
So it's raisingparents.net.
raisingparents.net. And I think if you go on there, there's a free download for something. Is it a little book or little something?
Oh, there's all kinds of articles and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's what I thought. So yeah. So I just encourage anybody who really enjoyed this conversation. First of all, let us know that you enjoyed this conversation, because I know I have, and I've learned so much. I mean, we're leaving here with 3 very, very concrete techniques that we can take with us and use. They're free. You don't need any materials. It's all you, right? You don't need anything. They're always with you. Those techniques.
And you've just been completely trained.
Yes, and
the training is complete.
Completely trained. So I feel like we are leaving. This has been great, because we're leaving here with this great knowledge and great strategy and technique to a tool. We have a tool in our toolbox now to deal with when we're triggered to fix something, right? Either with our kids or our coworkers, our parents, or whatever, our spouses. Oh, that's another one, fixing with your spouses, right? That's a whole nother ball game. Anyway, all the same energy though, all the same energy. And then we're able to then really realize that all of it is underlying fear. So we've been taught such great ways to deal with our fear. And that fear comes up in so many things, not just fixing energy, but in many things. So this is a priceless tool, and it was given to you for free today. So this is awesome. Linda, is there anything else that you'd like to say to the audience?
I would like to say it to you, actually. I love that you called her Justine, because quite often the sentence that comes out of people's mouths when they're doing this is just.
Yeah.
You just have to, you just stop, just.
Well, good. So see, I'm sure that that's exactly what I was saying. I can't exactly remember. I think I called her Justine because it was like justice. Like I was proving, I had that proving energy and the justice, so it's kind of nice. I love not having her so strong with me all the time, but she does visit every so often. What can I say?
I have the Linda twins, the Bickersons.
Oh,
The bicker. That's not like, she'll go sit on the bench. Just go sit on the bench.
And people who are not into this are going to think we're both crazy. Anyway, but that's okay, because
I can own that.
Because we don't really care what they think of us, because it's our own universe anyway.
Exactly. And that story about what they're thinking is, that's their story. They can have their story.
Exactly. Maybe we're triggering them. What can we say? Anyway, well, thank you so much for being on again. And like I said, any questions, any comments, definitely, reach out to myself. I'm at shiftyourgaze2.com, and Linda is at raisingparents.net, raisingparents.net. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Have a great day.
You too.